Hello, hello. Can you hear me? I don't think. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. One, two, three, 1, 2, 3. Maybe.
You say 4, 5, 6 maybe works.
Maybe.
4, 5, 6.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. What?
4, 5, 6.
This one.
4, 5, 6.
This one.
1, 2, 3.
4, 5, 6, no?
Oh my God. So none of you. Oh, what about you? Xiaozhe, can you check?
4, 5, 6, no?
4, 5, 6.
Also, none of the.
Oh,
The
it
good
looks
news is that it's almost finished now.
4, 5, 6.
Coffee time.
Quick half an hour and then we go
Excuse
for
me, also mine.
coffee.
Gabriele, it's positioned to you.
4, 5, 6.
1, 2, 3, no? 4, 5, 6, no?
Hello, hello, testing,
4, 5, 6.
谢谢.
testing. No, it's not working.
Doesn't work. Never mind, I think no, we use that.
Testing, testing.
We use that.
So it's not.
Let's use that. It's okay. The controller is here. Just did it. It's working.
Now it works?
You should. You say 4, 5, 6.
I will start. Maybe that's.
Yeah. See. Yes.
4,
5, 6.
Oh, it's louder. Okay. So good afternoon, colleagues, partners, and friends. So sorry for the delay. We're waiting for you. Actually, we've been here like since 1:30. So I'm very much honored and delighted to moderate this session. My name is Eskender, the head of the Independent Evaluation Office, who is the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank based in Beijing. Today we will have an interesting session, green money, real impact, mobilizing climate finance through financial intermediaries. As you all know, the gap with the financial demand in the climate finance, including adaptation, mitigation, the transition is huge. So we'll be trying to explore what role financial intermediaries could play. And also we'll explore why are we financing even financial intermediaries to begin with? Why are we evaluating them? What's the opportunity? What's the challenge? And we'll have a case study. With this, now I will invite Ms. Hwee Tin Kng, Acting Managing Director for the Compliant Evaluation and Integrity Unit within the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, and also the Chief Internal Auditor. So prior to joining AIIB, she used to be the CEO of one of the largest banks with thousands of employees in Shanghai. So it would be a privilege for us to have her to deliver her opening remark and to tell us we have someone outside of the evaluation community, especially solid in the private sector. So Hwee Tin, over to you.
Thank you. Speak from here, yeah?
Yeah, please do.
One, two, three. Very good. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very, very happy to be here amongst you. My name is Hwee Tin, as Eskender has introduced. I'm the day job in AIIB is Chief Internal Audit Officer. That's my day job. For my night job in AIIB, I'm the word is acting, Managing Director for a function called CEIU. Now, what does CEIU stand for? CEIU is Complaints Resolution, Evaluation, Integrity. So in many banks, these three functions are three different departments. It's basically about the accountability mechanism, the evaluation and integrity function. Now, our model is modeled upon the EIB model. So we copied their model and put all three functions into one. Well, for many reasons. The first reason being AIB is small, we are young, we're new. In terms of total staff strength, AIB is only 700 people today. So we started with this model where three units are combined into one. Now, I had the pleasure of becoming the acting MD because my colleague left to run for presidency of his country. So here I am. I've done this job since December till now, so it's been about 8 months. I've been learning tremendously from my colleagues around, including Eskender. Just very briefly on my background, I'm a newbie in this part of the world, meaning the Multilateral Development Bank. I spent more than 30 years in the private sector. To be exact, 31 years in one bank. And that is, what you call financial intermediary, the subject of our discussion today. And in that bank, I've done over 31 years, about 13 to 14 different jobs. So I enjoyed my time in the financial intermediary in this bank. As Eskender said, my last job in the bank was the CEO of the China entity. It's a Singapore bank, but I run the China entity. So it's a lot of fun. And why I come into your part of the world, because I think you do tremendous, meaningful work. And having done a whole lifetime of private sector, I want to see how I can learn and contribute at the same time. And that's why I'm here. And like I said, learning from evaluators is mind-boggling. I'm learning a whole new world together. In terms of the topic today, it is about green money, real impact, mobilizing climate finance through financial intermediaries. And I'm very interested in the topic of financial intermediaries. I'll explain to you, I spent a whole lifetime over there. This is a time of compounding challenges. Climate change, fiscal pressures, mounting development needs. They're all straining governments and MDBs. Now, working with financial intermediaries is one way of, bringing more development resources to the people who need it. And in AIIB, this is one of our thematic priorities. We have 4 thematic priorities. We have green infrastructure, enabling tech-enabled infrastructure, connectivity through regional cooperation, and finally, private capital mobilization. And this is one of the important thematic priorities in AIIB. Now, in terms of financial intermediaries, they mobilize private capital. We need to expand climate finance. We connect resources. And as evaluators, I call ourselves we, right? Because today I'm like part-time evaluator. We know the risks. When finance flow through complex channels, tracing impact and ensuring accountability becomes harder. Now, this is where I want to pause for a while and step back and look at why would financial intermediaries bother about green finance, bother about impact? Because financial intermediaries, the private sector ones, and us, we are actually in 2 different parts of the world, right? One is profit making. The other one is, I call, in my own words, do good, development impact. So when I joined AIIB, I came to 4 words that, MDBs do, and I'm still learning. I said, we do good and we do right, which is about development impact and governance. So that is MDB part of the world. But if you look at the private sector, financial institutions, we are about profit making, return on equity, corporate social responsibility, and regulator. We make sure regulators are happy. So these are 2 different levers. And if we talk about money through, MDBs working with financial intermediaries, private ones, to bring about development impact. And as evaluators, where do we find the point of convergence? Right? How do we make our evaluation report count? What levers can we use to make financial intermediaries listen to us? That was what was going through my head, right? And my experience over there and my very shallow experience in MDB, I think we can think about maybe 2 levers. That's how I would suggest personally from my perspective. And the 2 levers are the private financial intermediaries want to make money. They want their stock market to go up. So capital markets is very important to them. Regulators are very important to them. And if our evaluation reports can give them these 2 angles, I think we are one step closer with them. That is my personal, view about how we can bring about greater impact through financial intermediaries as far as evaluators are concerned. Right? So this is where I think we can put the 2 things together. Now today's session, we're going to draw on the experiences of Eskender plus our 3 very esteemed and experienced speakers. We will examine 3 questions here. What we have learned from evaluating financial intermediaries in climate finance. How can we improve accountability and transparency and impact assessment? How can innovation in data, methods, and collaboration help us do better? So without further ado, I hand it over to Eskender. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Hwee Tin. That was an enlightening opening. So we'll try to explore where the convergence is, how we do evaluation, where the impact and the contribution from the financial intermediaries are. So our theme today is rightly positioned with the overall theme of the AEW at 10, navigating crisis, building on success. So A&S risk assessment into credit due diligence, as I have said. Oops.
It's finished.
It's finished, I think. Yeah. Anyway, so with that, those recommendations were fully adopted, and we presented this to the board. And also, we are grateful that EBRD was a peer reviewer on this. Nat, where she's sitting, Natalie, I think I saw, yes, she's here. Thank you very much. We gain enormously from that experience. Now, with this, I will go to our discussion. First round, what have we really learned, including on this particular experience? So with this further ado, let me just, Gabriele, let me come to you. I hope you're ready. Okay, Gabriele, your department has recently completed a series of evaluation touching upon EBRD's climate finance, including an in-depth evaluation of EBRD's green bond investment and evaluation of EBRD bail-in able product, and a more comprehensive evaluation of EBRD green economy transition strategy. Can you please share with us the evaluation insight on EBRD's intermediate lending for advancing climate finance, particularly from emerging those evaluation? What lesson can MEDB draw from those experience, including us, AIIB, which is the youngest in the block? Over to you.
Well, thank you very much, first of all, for the kind invitation to be in this panel, for the beautiful dinner last night, very important, and for the nice presentation, Eskender. You both already set the scene. You are very politically correct, but this is the first panel session after lunch, so let me be a bit more provoking for some kind discussion. So, green finance through financial intermediaries. So, according to the latest MDB harmonized report on climate finance, last year, MDB's climate finance reached $135 billion. And there is not an official figure about the CO2 emissions reduction, thanks. There is not, but it's around millions of tons of CO2 savings. Now, the questions that we try to tackle from an EBRD perspective is, really? So, through all this green finance, through financial intermediaries, we really generate a green impact? Yeah. Are we sure about that? Are we sure that we really expand through FI the climate finance beyond what our financial intermediaries, our partners, already intended to do? Right? So there were some questions, and you mentioned a number of evaluations that indeed we undertook over these years. And there are a few issues came out. Credibility. So take a green bonds. So EBRD invested in green bonds, like what? 22 billion over the last 6 years in more than 25 green bonds. And only a very small fraction, actually, the ex-post data match the ex-ante estimates. There was one green bond, Veronica, I don't know if you remember, but it was supposed to allocate 35% to renewables. What we got is that less than 2% went to renewable energy. Second, refinancing. So most of the EBRD, but it's an MDB problem actually, green bonds and in general intermediate lending is to refinance all debt, right? Yeah. And we don't monitor that. We don't monitor, we don't report. So there is some question about, environmental additionality. I don't want to even go to a CO2 emission savings methodology. There are so many things that we can say around. I just want to say that MDB, not all the MDBs, for sure not EBRD, pro rata, their contribution of CO2 emission savings. So let's say that we finance, we are 20% of a green bond investments, or we finance 20% of a project. We claim for the whole CO2 emissions reduction estimates, still estimates, of that project. That is a good reason why then we don't report aggregate figures of CO2 emission savings at an MDB level. And I just want to get to a last point about the use of proceeds, right? I mean, so basically what happens is that MDBs, get a sort of agreement with our intermediaries that they will indeed direct finance towards green sub-loans and so on and so forth. And that is, in certain cases, happens, of course. Our qualitative assessment of many of this type of projects, though, indicate that our clients, private sector clients in most of the cases, had already intention to invest in that green project, right? So the additionality, and in particular the mobilization of that, is absolutely zero. So I think that there is, last year there was this G20 initiative for the MDB to work more as a system and to understand better the aggregate impact of the MDBs. I think that there is a lot of work, and maybe we will touch that in the second part of the discussion, about really to try to move from a transactional kind of perspective. Our bankers spend all the time to think, how we can tag this climate finance. So then we can report that it is climate finance, and we did a great thing, to try to understand what is the green systemic change. Because one thing we are sure about is that green change can be only systemic. I stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gabriele. You really touched upon some of the key provoking issues about how much do you really know about this, our intervention and impact, even when it came to CO2 emission. So I think this is a joint challenge, not to be being transactional. But for me, I think this complexity of the financial intermediary that makes for evaluator challenging, and also our role essential. Yes, it's challenging to understand, to segregate, attribution, contribution, all additionality, all those whatever, right? But also our role has become very essential to really direct the policymakers how much finance and why it's needed and how have we done in the past. So with this, I will move to my AIIB colleague, Tania. Tania, intermediate lending is an important part of AIIB's group activity, which is since 2009, guided by Climate Bank Roadmap. You recently completed a comprehensive evaluation of this roadmap. Congratulations, by the way. Which role does AIIB Group's intermediate lending play for advancing climate adaptation and mitigation? As you know, this is a very controversial issue. So there is huge unsettled agreement between which financing go to adaptation and mitigation. What can other MDB learn from the AIIB Group? Over to you.
No, it's working. Okay, thank you, Eskender. And it's really a pleasure to be here. And thank you, everyone, for joining us for this session right after lunch. We appreciate you joining us. Sorry, I'd like to just step back a little bit with a few reminders on why we are investing through intermediate finance to support climate action, and it will complement some of the points that you made earlier in this discussion. So really, to simplify, greening our economy, both for public and private sector-led activities, to do this, we need to invest in green technologies to accelerate the green transition, and we need to help public and private sector entities green the way they operate, so decarbonize their activities. And in both instances, it's essential for us to work with large corporates at the national level, but also to work with smaller entities. So, for example, local utilities at the municipal level, or small electricity transmission and distribution operators. And in the private sector, we need to work with startups, with early stage innovators, with micro enterprises, small and medium enterprises, and mid-caps. So all this, to echo some of the points made by colleagues here, is that we need to reach out to a myriad of small entities And this requires us working with these financial intermediaries, commercial banks, national promotional banks, but also investment funds, leasing companies. And so this is why we work through financial intermediaries. But another important objective of our work is to help green the financial system. So in doing this, in working with these financial intermediaries, we're also there to build their capacity to identify green investment opportunities and to help invest more into climate action. So I just wanted to make these 2 points. So what have we found in our recent evaluations regarding the EIB Group's intermediate financing for climate action? And here I will echo many of the points made by Gabriele in his remarks a few minutes ago. So let me just start with the positives, because still there are a few positives. So we've really found that over the past 5 years in particular, the EIB has really increased, of course, its support to through intermediated lending, its support to financial intermediaries. And through this has really increased the share of intermediate lending that is green. So we're really seeing a strong increase there. About 60% of our intermediated lending goes to green activities. And we use a use of proceeds approach, so we check every single allocation to ensure that they go to green activities. However, this is an ex-ante assessment, so we'll get back to this afterwards. But that's one positive trend. Another positive trend is that we are seeing more of our investments through these financial intermediaries go to those smaller players, so local utilities at the municipal level, those early innovators, SMEs, etc. So that's good news. Now, and the other important point is that we've invested a lot in building the capacity of financial intermediaries, and through our technical assistance, we've also developed a specific tool called the Green Checker that helps financial intermediaries identify what constitutes a green activity. Okay, so these were the positives. However, and here I'm echoing some of the points that Gabriele just made, we're not quite sure that we're really pushing the envelope there. As Gabriele was saying, those commercial banks, those investment funds, they already have a green portfolio. They're already investing into green activities. And what we found in our evaluations is that the financial advantage we're giving to those financial intermediaries is not actually enough. We're not giving them a strong enough incentive to go out there to really look for those difficult projects that might not yet be there, to really initiate and originate green financing. So this mitigates a little bit some of the positive findings that we had, and it brings us to this question of additionality. Are we, as an MDB, really being additional here and helping originate more green investments? And then one other point is, and then I'll stop, is that so we've seen that the EIB has really worked a lot with financial intermediaries by providing intermediate financing. But however, what we're seeing is that today, especially for investments in the renewable sector, one of the major issues isn't so much a liquidity constraints, it's more a matter of risk. There's a greater need for de-risking these types of investments. If you think of investments in the solar panel or wind power sector, so these are, of course, risky investments to make to start with, but also because of the dynamics of the market of the energy sector, the cash flows are very uncertain. So there's a bit of a disconnect there. And what we're seeing is, in fact, the financial intermediaries really need guarantees. They really need to help us de-risk instead of really providing liquidities. So our evaluations pointed to the fact that we might not be providing the right types of financial instruments that are needed to foster these green investments. And I will stop there because I had some points also on the MDB framework, but maybe we can get to it on the second part of the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tania. You really outlined few thought-provoking issues as well, because this is, I think, it's beyond even thematic evaluation. It's huge. The entire AIIB's roadmap. You really evaluated. So you gave us also context, what really worked well, how you strike the balance, financing bigger corporate and also even complementing them with a lower end who can do transmission line, distribution, and those utilities. Also, we have realized what did work well, what incentive should be there for the financial intermediaries. I think that's a key question. And the greenwashing also has always been there, and it's an issue, right? Thank you very much. Now we'll move to NDB. So before I ask my question, I want to recognize Mr. Ashawani, the Director General of Office of the Independent Evaluation, who is with us, and also Veronique, the Chief Evaluator and Managing Director of EBRD. Okay, let me move to Xiaozhe now. The Independent Evaluation Office of NDB has recently completed several evaluations in the renewable energy sector, including an evaluation of non-sovereign operation implemented by the Development Finance Intermediary, Development Bank of South Africa. What were your key findings concerning whether green money did to real impact? Since you have also went actually outside of even the region to South Africa, I will look forward to hear your insight. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair, for your question, and thank you for your inclusion of considerations, because I will bring the angle maybe from not only Asia, but also South Africa. Before answer your question, maybe I will quickly introduce the work of an Independent Evaluation Office and New Development Bank, because for colleagues who are sitting here with us, actually the New Development Bank is similar with Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank, because we are the second youngest MDB established in July 2015. So this year, the same as the Asia Evaluation Week, we're also celebrating the 10th year anniversary. Congratulations. And we share this achievement. And there are in total, there are 6 focus areas of NDB's work, which including the clean energy, transportation, water sanitation, digital infrastructure, environment protection, and social infrastructure. As we can notice, there is one word which was not mentioned in any of these 6 areas, but actually is closely embedded in all of these sectors, and including it is also the color of our logo, which is green. And also green is the topic we're talking about today, the green finance and the green impact. In the past 10 years, we have approved and implemented different green finance operations in NDB member states. Actually, as early as January 2016, the Board of Directors of NDB has approved the NDB policy to enable NDB provide loan. Excuse me. To enable NDB to provide loan without sovereign guarantee to national financial intermediaries. And since then, we have moved in this direction and conducted different type of operations in our member states. But we, excuse me. We recently started to conduct independent evaluation of such operation because our office, the Independent Evaluation Office of NDB, was established 3 years ago. So actually, immediately after establishment of the office, we started to establish not only the evaluation policy, but also very solid evaluation methodologies that we use to evaluate such operations in our member states. We have similar evaluations, like as Eskender mentioned today, which we provided in South Africa, which is similar like the TSKB. TSKB, we provide, the New Development Bank provided a loan to the National Development Bank of South Africa, which is actually a national financial intermediary. The key findings of our evaluation, I will also start with the positive side, is we found out that by working very closely with our national financial intermediary partners, we can really leverage the local and country context and also the expertise from the region and from the country. And secondly, because of the selection, we have very strict selection criteria to better identify the financial intermediaries that we will work with. And in this case, we have the DBSA, Development Bank of South Africa. They have very strong implementation capacity, which establish a solid basis for the implementation of these projects in the country. Also, a comparative advantage of the operation financed by New Development Bank is maybe unlike other MDBs, we heavily rely on the country systems. And in this case, leveraging the expertise and experience of the national financial intermediary really enable us to increase the efficiency and effectiveness of NDB's funding to the country. But we also found out that there are constraints to work with them at the country level, including because NDB, we still have our own evaluation methodology, evaluation frameworks we normally use to evaluate different type of projects. But our partners in the country may have a different mindset or different areas of priority. And in this case, how to harmonize and consolidate to ensure we have a consistent evaluation framework, that's a constraint. And we may experience delay in that, especially at project design stage. I will share with more insights later on in the second round, but maybe I will stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very insightful intervention as well. So it's also good to note how NDB is moving forward and fast actually in this financial intermediary space, and especially how do you really try to bridge the gap when you use a country system, like in the case of South Africa, right? So with the MDB, the criteria that we have, the OECD DAC criteria, and I think it's also one of the area where capacity building is very important as intervention we do. And also one thing that caught my attention is your structure of financing, where you don't require always guarantee. That's also something very interesting instrument to note. So I think with this, now we have concluded our first round of discussion. Now let's look forward. Now we have been dealing with how we did those evaluations, right? So now what's next? Now, AI, digital reporting, joint framework, help us evaluate FI element finance better and enhance target monitoring the evaluation. So I think these are the 10. So the main message is, now I will ask all of us, how can those innovation, Gabriele, again, I will start from you.
Lucky me.
Yeah. So AI, digital reporting, joint framework help us evaluate FI climate finance better and enhance target monitoring and evaluation. How do you really think we are doing on those space? And what do you think need to be done to be really more effective and even address those challenges in a real-time evaluation? What's your experience so far? So the same question all the time.
Well, for all AI-related questions, you please ask Veronique. She is the big expert in our in EBRD, and she was the engine behind also what I consider really a fantastic tool we call Lessons Bot. Basically, it's an AI-powered tool where we included all the evaluation reports EBRD produced over the last 14 years, plus all the evaluation reports from other IFIs, other MDBs, particularly belonging to the ECG. And it's a great tool, and Veronica probably will speak about. In coming to your question, well, let's start from a part that also Tania touched, this joint methodological framework. Well, you know how many MDB cross-institutional green-related frameworks we have so far? No, you don't know. Sorry, I counted for you. We have 22 frameworks across European Commission, IFIs, MDBs that are there, out there. There is definitely framework shopping. And there is a clearly need for simplification and a bit of refinement. When we were discussing about, maybe we can elaborate a bit on this MDB principle for climate mitigation and adaptation finance tracking, this MDB harmonized approach? Well, for example, when we discuss about climate mobilization, it's interesting that this framework allows, for example, and I simplify, but if you have a green project, and you mobilize finance, all the finance that you mobilize, although can go to things that are not green, are considered climate mobilization, right? So there is a lot of space for refinement. What you mentioned, AI-enabled analytics, there is this approach of a blockchain-based reporting platform that can definitely help moving towards more near real-time monitoring. It's very important also for reducing the burden on our clients, so that is definitely very positive. What I think that is still very much missing is what we were discussing before, the behavioral change, the incentives, how we can find ways for the clients for the partner financial institution to consider green finance really as a business opportunity, right? That is the key point. I'm sure AI can play a role into that, definitely can play a role for evaluators to get a much more richer and sophisticated, more nuanced monitoring. Definitely can be an incentive for behavioral change, and I think that is a challenge for all of us here to think about how that can really become an instrument that we can use systematic for having green finance as really a business opportunity for our partner financial institutions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Gabriele. I can't agree more with you, the importance of the behavioral change. Tania, over to you.
Working? Okay. Sorry, I'm having some technical issues. So I'll just make 3 points. Some of them will, of course, echo what Gabriele was just saying. I'd like to come back to also the point you were raising about the frameworks. We all have, and Gabriele was mentioning 22 frameworks, we all have different definitions of what constitutes green. And this puts financial intermediaries in a very difficult situation. They're working with EBRD one day and will be tracking finance in green finance in one way, and then EIB will come along and work with them and we'll have a different definition. And that's just 2 institutions, but then for those who are also working with ADB, it just becomes a bit of a nightmare. So this is obviously outrageous. We should all be harmonizing our definitions of what constitutes green. This should be sort of a basic agreement. So we're talking about AI, but we need to get our frameworks harmonized. That's one point. The other point is I'd like to get back to this question of incentives again, which echoes what you were saying, Gabriele. We're not providing financial intermediaries with the incentives they need to actually go out there and look for these green projects. It is transaction. There are huge transaction costs to this. It requires a lot. It requires know-how and also time and investments on their part. So we really need to make an effort there to work together to provide blended finance to these financial institutions, to find a way for this to make business sense for them to do it and to not minimize the cost it entails on them. And then my last point is going back to impact. As I was saying earlier, we check all the allocations that go through our financial intermediaries, but we check them ex ante. We do not go back to them ex post. We have not, at the EIB, yet updated our additionality framework to account for this. When we look at the impact of our intermediated lending, we focus on job creation, economic growth. All of these are very important, but we have not yet integrated the impact in terms of climate mitigation or climate adaptation. And this also at the MDB level is something that we've not yet agreed to in our frameworks. So I'll stop here. Thanks.
Thank you, Tania. So I fully agree again with the impact. Because sometimes with the nature of this climate change business, to materialize and to see the impact takes time. So one of the challenges also in my previous role at IFC, we find is by the time you finance, the client has already existed, repaid, and finished. When the evaluation is coming back, it really needs years to the impact to see materialized. So I think that's a good area. Over to you, Maggie.
Thank you very much. As we know, for evaluation, there are two important pillars, accountability and learning. From my perspective, the use of AI technology can really directly contribute to both of these two pillars. Even for IMDBs, multilateral development banks, and I believe Gabriele, Tania, and Eskender will agree with me, the resources can be provided by multilateral development banks are also limited, which means we really need to identify the proper projects at the beginning so that we could really maximize the resources we will use and to ensure the maximized level of effectiveness, efficiency, and impact. And how we're going to identify such projects, the use of AI technology, especially for identify and design climate resilient projects, will play a very important role. The use of AI can help us, for instance, to establish early warning system, can help us to more accurately monitor and track the progress during the project implementation stage. That will improve the performance of the project, which further strengthening the accountability of our evaluation. And also for us, I heard Gabriele mention the lessons boat. Myself really have the privilege to witness the launch of this AI tour in February this year in London. That was a really remarkable achievement because we have so many evaluation products and which include the tremendous knowledge and lessons shared or generated from each product. And by using AI tools such as the lessons boat, it really helped not only the evaluators, but also the development practitioners, the project staff, the partners in the country. When they design the new projects, they can really easily identify what are the lessons have been consolidated and synthesized from the evaluations did in the past. Because also very often when we conduct independent evaluations at the country level, our partners questioning us, what are you expecting us to do with the evaluation because the project already closed? However, by having the knowledge tool or AI tool such as Lessons Boat, we can really show them that this is how we will better use evaluation because we provide the lessons and we even summarize or help you to better identify or to mitigate the risks in the future to better inform the project design for our partners. And that is why, from my perspective, I'm a strong supporter of AI, and I really hope that the similar tool could be adopted and designed in my own institution and development bank very soon, and very much look forward to learn from the experience of EBRD and other colleagues. I will stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Xiaozhe. I can't agree with you more on the EBRD's successful designing this lesson tool under the leadership of Enrique. We are very much grateful. As a new MDBs, I think it could be extremely instrumental for us. You have not only done lessons from your own institution, but you're able to gather. I think this is one of the additionality where evaluators in action can bring fundamental change, especially the due diligence and the structure of a new deal for the investment officer. So with this, now over to you, ladies and gentlemen. We are officially opening for insightful questions, observation, reflections. Please, I hope microphones are both on the left, the right, on the middle. Please state your name, so the floor is yours. Thank you.
Ashwani.
You know the deal, right?
Okay.
Reflection. Yeah. It's all planned. I mean,
Oh, yeah, this works. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon. And first of all, congratulations to, number one, to AIIB for organizing such an interesting discussion. And thanks to the speakers for their very insightful comments and the presentation also that was made. Really, really impressive. I think the whole concept of having all these banks together, it's really very, very nice to see the community come together and share lessons and engage in a dialogue with the audience. And I really encourage the audience to please stand up and share your reflections and ask questions. From my side, I don't plan to ask many questions, but I don't want to let the panel off so easily either. There is one, I mean, I heard many things and I would love to discuss more in detail, but in the interest of time, there's only one question, and that is, it's not necessarily for Gabriele, it's for the panel as a whole, but it is inspired by one of the comments he made about additionality in your evaluation, and that you found that EBRD in this case, there was no financial additionality. And that is a concern and a finding in majority of our evaluations as well, when we fund financial intermediaries. So this appears to be a systemic issue across the banks. And I just wonder how we can, what kind of recommendations we can make to our colleagues in the operations and our country teams so that we really have a financial additionality as well. Now on top of that, and maybe I'd like to hear your reflections on that, of course the financial additionality is not the only thing we're looking for. We're also looking for non-financial additionality. And perhaps you can comment on that, whether there was any non-financial additionality. And do you see that in your operations, in EBRD, but also in the other organizations? But with that, I thank you once again for really very insightful remarks, reflections, and presentations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's have 2, 3, 4 questions so we can blend them together. Over to you. Veronique, do you have questions? Oh, so it was planned, you're right.
It was planned. It was planned. It was a plan.
Ashwani, so it was planned.
Okay. Thank you. Hi everyone, I'm Marina, and it's my first time to be in the AIIB, and so I'm so thrilled to see so many professionals, evaluators across the globe. Let me introduce myself. I finished my master's degree in Hong Kong Baptist University and major in globalizations. So climate issues is very important to me. So my question is, because I'm currently working for an institution related to environmental issues and tackling climate crisis. And the question is, my college, Changsha Environmental Protection College, is not that famous like Peking University or Tsinghua University, Harvard University, but we really did a lot about like water purifications and environmental engineering. So I'm wondering that the MBD's experts and how will you to like invest the agencies like us, because we are not small techs and we are not just maybe compliance with some your criteria. So I want to hear about you. And my second question is, also meanwhile, I'm the UN volunteers, the major in the UNTP China to numerous programs to enhance and raise people's awareness of sustainable goals. And when I held my session about climate action several months ago, one of my friends came to my session, and he works for the bank. And he says, when I asked him about climate and green finance, he asked me, well, we just matching the data. I don't think we do something about the climate protections. So I'm wondering how to tackle the challenges like this. Yes, because we really want to make impact and green impact, not only just matching the data. Let's use this, and that will make nothing to do our planet. So that's my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Okay, you have question? Okay, please. Next.
Thank you. This is Sumaira Rafiq from Ministry of Economic Affairs, Pakistan.
Sorry, your name?
Sumaira Rafiq from Ministry of Economic Affairs, Pakistan. First of all, thank you very much that everyone mentioned additionality of climate finance, because this is the stance of most of the vulnerable countries, including Pakistan, because Pakistan is hit by floods these days, you know, and it is the most vulnerable country. And this additionality of allocation of climate finance is very important and debated topic these days. And even Pakistan also thinks that this climate finance is coming at the expense of development finance, and it is undermining our development objectives. So my question is that, first of all, when you carry out evaluations, do you consider, you know, getting data from these vulnerable countries from the grassroots level, like from the areas which are hit by the floods or disasters? So data collection should be from those areas specifically which are, you know, disaster prone, and those are the vulnerable areas of the country, not just from Pakistan, but from other countries as well. And secondly, I have another comment that when we talk about additionality, it should be in terms of the terms and conditions of the finance as well. Because when we are getting loans from multilateral development banks, those terms and conditions should be different and additional to development finance. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Please.
I'm Ibrahim from the Auditor General's Office, Assistant Auditor General from the Maldives. I'm actually wearing many hats. The hat of an evaluator, internal auditor, risk official, external auditor, so on and so forth, yeah? So I would like to actually share some thoughts, my thoughts as to, you know, how I believe these various, what I call as evaluators, assurance providers, auditors, you know, should coordinate their work, I believe. External auditors, internal auditors, risk officials, yeah? I believe rather than working in silos when it comes to evaluating the projects, of course the breadth and depth of the evaluation work carried out by these different professionals are different, but I believe that when you are working as a full-fledged evaluator, rather than working in silos, I believe that you should be looking at the outputs of the internal auditors, chief risk officer, for example, yeah? And what has the external auditor done in relation to this project? When we work in coordination, we may be able to map, you know, the gaps in evaluation, and we may be able to, you know, fulfill it without duplicating the evaluation or assurance resources, yeah? What do you think of that is my question.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think let's take this first round of almost 5 questions we have. So let me just take the Pakistan question. How to let it go? Because I used to cover Pakistan a lot when I was in IFC. I don't know if you know Gulper, Karot, all the wind power projects from the investment angle. Yes, I think EBRD took the local data context very, very much. Actually, I did the first cumulative impact assessment in Gulper, which is even available on the web, understanding how the all biodiversity offset and all those things are critically important. I just want to intervene on that with that. So whoever want to start, Gabriele, I think the first question, Ashawani's question, right, on additionality, both financial additionality and non-financial additionality. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for the question. Thank you very much for engaging with us. That's really, really a pleasure. So one point on additionality is what also, I think you, Tania, touched about it. I mean, so we don't have, there is a framework about how to measure additionality. Really, we really don't use that much. It's time now to rethink about what additionality is and the relationship between additionality and impact, right? It's really interesting to see in several EBRD projects, before I was in other institutions, where the non-financial additionality actually becomes more important than the financial additionality. Of course, I agree that the condition of finance, it's something that we always to keep in mind, but the non-financial additionality is one of the channels for the systemic change. So it's something that I think we should always really consider in our work. And in evaluation is one of the instruments that is able to dig out this.
Yeah.
And it's one of the value added that we as evaluators can bring is when the non-financial additionality through policy dialogue, through in different ways becomes the really value added of an institution, a financial institution. And that also, your point also, Maureen, about the systemic impact, it's absolutely important. And the questions about evaluators and auditors is something that we daily have to discuss. And but it is a very good point because that means that there is still need for evaluators and auditors to explain the different functions and in the way that they can better cooperate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tania, over to you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, thank you so much for your questions. I'm glad we can have a good discussion. On the question of additionality, I think our evaluations do show pretty good non-financial additionality, especially when we look at the capacity building of financial intermediaries. And going back to this point about greening the financial systems, I think that's really a plus. On the financial additionality, yes, we do have an issue. I would just like to point to the fact that there can be, at least it's the case at the EIB, some internal incentives that are not aligned. Is that our staff we're very much volume driven. There are huge incentives for our frontline staff to basically meet some targets in terms of lending volumes. And so this doesn't quite square well. We're not setting the right incentives internally to our staff to ensure there's strong financial additionality. And then this point about the trade-offs, potential trade-offs between climate finance and development finance. I understand that there are these debates, and I think what we're trying to do at the EIB is to move away from this kind of a fake trade-off to really show that it makes business sense to invest in green investments make business sense. So we're embedding systematically climate risk assessments in our operations to make sure that our operations are resilient. And I think we can all agree, given the frequency of climate-related disasters, that this is really important. So I think it's also about us shifting the narrative and not getting into this kind of debate, which I think is moot. And then about us working in silos, I think that we really try, and I've heard this from other MDBs too, to ensure that we build our work from evaluations on what our other colleagues are doing in internal audit, in the economics department, etc. So we are independent, but we don't work in isolation. And this holds for us at the EIB, but I know it holds for our other evaluation colleagues as well. Thank you.
First of all, thank you very much for these questions from the 4 representatives, which I found very interesting, and I believe these questions are somehow interlinked. So I will try to provide my feedback by hopefully addressing all this questions together. When we do evaluations, we need a country analysis, which requires a thorough understanding of the country context, the background and economic status, etc. And that is why the colleagues from Pakistan mentioning whether we use the data from the country or how we to identify or how we analyze the country context, especially in states with fragile context. And this is a very important dimension. In the case of NDB, when we not only identify projects but also do evaluations, this is a very country context, sector context is a very important element we will consider before even we start design the evaluation framework. Why are we doing this way? Because we want to make sure the design of our evaluation framework will fully capture the specific situations in each of our member states, so that our evaluation could be more tailored to the issues and to the context in the country and the region. The colleagues from Changsha, you mentioned a very good point, and please, I would like to really congratulate you, because although you mentioned the Tsinghua University, but I believe your question itself and also your presence here as emerging evaluators from China, although not from Tsinghua University, but your presence here in the Asia Evaluation Week, really showing that the future of China in the areas of evaluation, and I'm even more proud that we have a female representative sitting here. You mentioned that you worked in your session or panel in the UN when you worked with other colleagues. You were questioning. They may have some hesitation. In my case, because I worked in the United Nations system for around 15 years, I would really believe that that is exactly why New Development Bank, together with our partners, EBRD, AIIB, we have the additionality that we could provide to our partners as compared with other development partners such as the UN agencies. Because as MDBs, we can bring from two angles. In terms of fundings, we have the financial resources. And when we provide the financial resources to our member states to implement the project, we have our requirements, standards, principles, frameworks that our partners need to adopt or follow when they implement our project. That will help them to understand that when we provide resources, we'll not only look at whether this road has been built or that offshore wind power farm has been built, we will look at and also make sure that the resources provided by MDBs really generate green impact. And this, I think, is the power of MDB, or additionality of MDB, by using and leveraging the financial resources altogether. And second one, the non-financial aspects is we are also inclusive, which means that we work with different entities and partners, including our colleagues from the audit function mentioned that they may consider evaluation as independent, but when we conduct evaluation, I believe it is a very strong and necessary part that we will make sure we will review the work did by our peer colleagues in the institution, because we will check whether the issues identified by our internal auditors have been addressed at project completion stage. Because as you know, that independent evaluation normally conducted several years after project completion. And that is why I also strongly believe that and agree with the colleagues that audit and evaluation should work together because we take different priorities. Thank you.
Totally, now it's okay. Thank you very much. Normally, as scheduled, the program should have been ended by now, but we have started 15 minutes late. So, and also the interest of the lively discussion will extend it for 15 minutes, but I will only open for the remaining 5 minutes. For the rest, we'll keep it to my boss, waiting to make a high-level summary of the session. But now also I see Andreas and also Jose. Since they wouldn't have a chance to be with us on the table, I think it's also important to gain their perspective from GCF and also Caribbean. So do you want in 5 minutes reflect if you have any question, reflection, and then I will come back to the panelists. Andreas, over to you. I know I put you on the spot, but yeah.
Easy, too easy.
Because I know you.
We're merging all towards the same discussion. And I think from the GCS perspective, we've looked at this question of additionality and contribution of the GCF funds to any other work that would be done through our accredited entities. And most of them are here, even on the panel, as EBRD is here and others. So one thing that keeps coming back to me is this question about innovation. And I like what you said, Gabriele, from talking about the non-financial as well as the financial attribution. And here to my mind, at this point, we're at the GCF, we're talking a lot about what is innovation. We all recognize climate needs are bigger than the public funds, bigger than the MDBs, bigger than anyone around. We're recognizing we need us all together, pulling on the same string, including the private sector. And in that conversation, we recognize that innovation as a concept is not quite clear. It's not only technological innovation. It is also the business model that's important, because the business model ensures inclusion of groups that otherwise would not be included. And so you gotta think wider, and I think in that context, this question of attribution is really one where we have to dig deeper. I really, really agree with the conversation here today to say we need to unpack the frameworks that we've got, because to my mind, they're just a little bit too old. And of course, you're looking at me as a very young chap here, but too old to recognize the emerging themes around climate finance and development finance as a whole. So from my perspective, it's really coming back to the question of innovation. What is it? And just to end this conversation as well, we've just had a discussion in the GCF because we just finished an evaluation on a similar topic, where we said, okay, what is simplified approval? How do we get simplified projects on the ground? And the big question here was, sometimes it's not necessarily about our attribution and our financial attribution. It's also about what aspects come after. What is the scaling that we're seeing after the project has been implemented? What sort of replication efforts, so the unintended consequences of our work, what is that? And how can we quantify this as potential additional gains from the work and from our implementation on the ground? I'm hoping this is not going too wide as a discussion, but just to contribute to this discussion, I think we really need to dig deeper in that framework. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Jose, the head of the Caribbean Investment Bank Independent Evaluation Department. Over to you. Central America, I'm sorry. Caribbean.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you, Alexander. Thank you, Alexander.
You know everything.
Thank you, Alexander.
Oh, really?
Hello, everyone. Jose Deras from the Central American Bank for Economic Integration. Thank you for the question. Let me put at the table two key issues. One is transitions towards sustainability. And the second one is how can we support the financial systems around the different regions in the world to become green financiers. That's a discussion we have had at the Evaluation Cooperation Group table. Why have we had that? We have been identifying, in the case of the CABE, in our region, from Mexico, the whole Central American region, the Caribbean region as well, that's why you were mentioning the Caribbean, and the South America, that, for example, and IDB has the similar lessons as well, and I guess IFC financing through the financial system as well. We have identified that, for example, for more than 100 financial intermediaries we have in the region, mobilizing more than $20 billion to the final beneficiaries. We have identified that if we insist that the MDBs are canalizing the resources to the final beneficiaries, to the financial system, and we don't see the financial system itself, I think we are wasting time and also wasting the scale. For example, when we measure the resources we are canalizing, the main multilateral development banks in the region, we see that we are canalizing less than 1% of the GDP of the region. So the impact we could expect from that is not high. I mean, when you see the whole financial system, which is more than 50% of the GDP, I mean, their portfolio is that we have to be looking at how to move their portfolio. That is where the non-financial additionality takes a high importance, a very strategic importance. Because if we move their portfolio to become, green, to mobilize resources for climate, we will see a huge impact in the GDP. More than 50% of the GDP is their portfolio. And we are insisting with less than 1% of our resources to change this. So we have to think in that way in order to introduce the transformational agendas we want. We have to move from marginal proposals to structural changes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, I will come back to my distinguished panelists. Then I will invite Hwee Tin to do the wrap-up. Gabriele, let me ask you, if you meet a young evaluator like Marina on the street and she asks you, give me one advice in one sentence, what would you advise her on how to evaluate this green finance and private sector in one sentence?
Well, that is a good one, actually. But since I'm half Italian, half French, a bit more poetic, eyes on the horizon, feet on the ground. Eyes on the horizon, innovation, artificial intelligence, feet on the ground, credibility of the data, housekeeping, putting our things in place.
Thank you very much. Over to you, Tania. Same question.
To a young evaluator, sorry, I was thinking of something else, but I would say learn from others. Learn from others, learn from your peers, and collaborate with your peers. Mm.
1K takeaway message from me will be identifying and recognizing the different contexts to better tailor the evaluation so as to further strengthening the accountability of our work and also contribute to the green impact. It's a bit long, but it's still one sentence. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Now, Hwee Tin, over to you. From this an hour and a half, I'm sure having your background came from the financial industry. What's your takeaway and what any advice you leave with us? Please, over to you.
Thanks, Eskender, and thanks, everybody. I wouldn't dare to say advice, but before I do the conclusion, there's one point I like to jump in on the question from our Maldives friend, because you wear various hats, I wear a few of your hats. I'd like to offer a perspective on your point about how the various assurance providers can work together. Just as background, in the internal audit world, we have something called assurance map, meaning that we will map out first line of defense, second line and third line, and what assurance activities they do for, say, each activity or each department. And I was talking to Manny yesterday, I said that perhaps we can add evaluation as one of the columns, right? First line, second line, internal audit and evaluation as this whole map. I think we can do that as, as a person in this industry. I'll bring back to my internal audit colleagues to see how we can bring evaluation colleagues into this mapping, given that I have both hats. And the way to think about this, as you're speaking, I was just thinking about the structure. We need to think about mandate. The mandates of internal audit, first, second line evaluation, they are different. So considering the different mandates. The methodologies used by the different groups are different. So mandate methodology. The third thing is scope related to mandate. The scope of the work of the 4 different parties are again different. And of course, our products are different. Your product is an evaluation report. Internal audit, the product is an internal audit report. And first and second line, they have their own monitoring metrics. The last thing to consider is our audience. The internal audit audience is internal, whereas the evaluation audience is external. So this is where we need to take into consideration, these various aspects. So in thinking about your question, I thought about mandate, methodology, scope, products, and audience. So in that, I don't have much time to think through that structure, but in a very quick while, this is a structure I'm thinking about in order to address your question. Yeah. So on summing up my thoughts about this is very difficult, frankly. I'm an outsider, I'm like a small little step in the evaluation world, and listening to very experienced evaluators from very established organizations about green climate and about FIs. How do I conclude what I've heard? And as I listen and I take down notes, I conclude in 4 letters of the alphabet, TRIM, T-R-I-M, as I'm scribbling my notes. Now, what does, in my mind, TRIM stand for, T-R-I-M? And before I go into these 4 letters, I want to step back a little bit at the start of my opening to say, where the convergence is. And the convergence is how evaluators talk to clients, and indirectly through the investment operations, because ultimately, our clients, if you think about it through the layers, is really the FI. Although our direct clients is our investment operations, the bank, but truly we want to impact the FI. That's what I see as the indirect client, ultimate client. So if I break down these things and talk about how the convergences and the TRIM, I think in terms of continuation,